Hi everyone, so I want to make another Diablo 3 game update idea video. I've done many of those in the past about set items, about bounty rework, paragon rework, and I figured why not talk about charms. So this is actually a document that I have made over a year ago, I realized. So it was in June 2021 and I've never talked about it. But I have this little write-up here. I was just like bored one afternoon and did a little bit of brainstorming, and here we are. So I want to show you what I have in mind for how charms could work in Diablo 3. If you know charms from Diablo 2, these are these little things. You can stick them in your inventory and you get extra stats. And you can fill up your entire inventory until you have no spots left, which is kind of the regular way to play the game in the end game, which is obviously extremely annoying. So there are some problems with that, and we're not going to talk about charms in Diablo Immortal, which is even worse than this. So let's talk about what I have in mind here. So first of all, the charms in D2, yeah, they are great. They give you res, they give you some stats, some damage, attack rating, even plus skills. So they are really powerful. So you have to fill up your inventory with that stuff. But on the other hand, well, you don't have an inventory anymore. So that is a big problem. Meanwhile, I figured, what could we do in Diablo 3? Like, what could charms actually accomplish? So we have the issues. Many skills have one best rune that has no competition. Many skills and passives and items are really useless. Many builds use the same items again and again. And there's no combos, no interactions between different effects. And what I would like to achieve with this D3 charm system is more customization and boosting those underused skills and items, preserving the original while also making like a nice twist on the items that we already know and love. In general, it will just provide another avenue to min-max your character, to give some customization, to also maybe power boost the players a little bit by a tiny amount. But mostly I want these charms to be, yeah, impactful, but not too much, but also to the point where you can kind of choose this or that effect because it might alter, the build in a way that you like. So how could this work in Diablo 3? Now, obviously, I don't want to clutter everyone's inventory with extra charms as we are used to from Diablo 2. So I mentioned that it's a huge problem. So there would have to be some kind of like extra interface, some kind of extra charm inventory. Last Epoch does exactly that, for example. So you just have like, your equipment here. And then on the side, you have like, another small kind of mini inventory reserved for charms, so to say. So I would prefer to have, something similar to that. So my idea here is, for example, you can use 3 charms at a time. So maybe this could be like a fixed limit, or maybe this could be like some kind of, small, let's say 3 times 2 inventory. And then you have like, small charms with 1 slot and bigger charms with 2 slots or something like that. So they can kind of mix and match a little bit depending on the power of the charm. I think that would be fine too. And I want to have them like level 70 only, and I want to have them like no RNG. So let's imagine you level to 70 in a season, and then as you make your character, as you build your first set, and you start filling out the cube. And imagine that in a similar way to like filling out the cube, you could also fill out like, all your charms. So you find them once, they are drop only, so you actually have to grind, and eventually you're gonna get them all. I would prefer if this was made exclusive to non-rift content, so that there's like more of a reason to farm bounties. Maybe there could be some other bounty updates in the meantime as well, so that it's more pleasant to do them. Or perhaps you can drop anywhere, but there's like a way higher chance, similar to, for example, how you get your blacksmith recipes at the start of the season. So what would those charms actually do? So here are some example effects. I have them grouped by skills, passives, items, legendary gems, etc. So I'm going to give you like an example or two for each of them to give you a bit of an idea of what I actually have in mind. So let's start with the very first one that I wrote down here, the teleport's base cooldown. So my idea for that was that, for example, for the wizard class, teleport is basically not really a great mobility skill. It does work well in Firebirds because of how the synergy was created there, but it basically doesn't really work for any other wizard build. There's usually very little cooldown reduction on any wizard build besides Archon builds. So why not have like a little charm that actually reduces the base cooldown, makes wizards a bit more fluid to play, just gives them a bit of a bump, give wizards something. And if you're playing something like Firebird, you don't need a charm and you can do something else. Here's another example, Wind Chill on Multishot on the Demon Hunter. So this one gives 8% extra critical strike chance. This is one of the typical support Demon Hunter skills. But it would be cool if you could maybe fit it into your solo build. So why not give a charm that increases this critical strike bonus effect to a higher value so that you can use it in your solo build instead of, for example, Wolf Companion. You just do a multi-shot once in a while. Here's a quite funny one. I guess this is a bit outdated. But Soul Harvest with the Language rune. So I think this is pretty cool. It's just these kind of skills that usually always have like, one dedicated rune that you use. So in the Witch Doctor's case, you always use Language, which gives you extra armor based on your Soul Harvest stacks. But Soul Harvest actually has a bunch of cool other runes. So only the Jade Harvester actually gets to enjoy those. But there is, one that heals you, there's one that gives you mana, there's one that gives you movement speed. And all of those things are kind of nice to have, but obviously you wouldn't choose them over the Language rune. So one is not like the others. And I believe in those cases, there's definitely opportunity to, give a little something like a charm that doesn't really take away like a full, inventory slot, like a full legendary item or something like that, just to gain a small extra effect. Another example is also Archon Blast. So talking about customization, this number one spam while you're in Archon to get extra Archon stacks is extremely annoying, and it doesn't really do much good, I believe, for the game. So I believe this should be just changed, but if not, there could also be something like this. So way higher base cooldown, but you actually get something for pressing that button. So like for example a 15% damage done boost, so that you have the option to not mash your button all the time when you're playing Veers. Some of these could also be used as straight up buffs to extremely weak skills. So before we ever get like some big rework for them, so there might be a bit of an option to include something like this here, so that this might actually be featured in like a fully fleshed out build rework that we might get at some point, or maybe not, but at least it will also help those really underperforming skills. Something that I would also really like to see is something like this here, Land of the Dead, lasts 30 seconds, but you only get the base effect, and you only get maximum 5 corpses per second. So you don't have this perma freeze, but at least you can use your skills without outrageous amount of cooldown reduction. So for example, especially for corpse explosion builds, this could be something to make them more smooth and just give them a bit of like something to do between the real Land of Dead nukes. And I have more examples here, so let's talk about the passives. I believe something like this could be amazing with Rampage, where you can choose to make it maybe a bit more like, playable, a bit more beginner friendly when you play Barbarian. You have to get kills like every 6 seconds or something to keep up Rampage, but maybe just increase the duration with a charm and reduce the power a little bit so that you have a bit of like a bonus and the malus, but it evens out somewhere. I think some of these could also spark some actual like new builds. For example, here, Combination Strike on the Monk. So you use different resource spenders and they give you an extra damage buff for doing so. So most builds always have like exactly one spender, one thing that works with their set and all their items. And here you could use something else that works with your build and is suddenly very useful. So this could be like Cyclone Strike, and then maybe you add in like a third skill that gives you like even higher damage bonus. I think one cool thing that could be added for the hardcore crowd especially is this one. So a charm that is available for every class, improving their Chi Death passive to last 60 seconds, but only if you don't attack or move. So the idea here is that it's like, very strong disconnect protection, but otherwise doesn't help you to survive. Here are also some ideas on how items could be changed. So in Geom, for example, it could proc from a certain number of normal monster kills to give it a bit more consistency, for example, for people that don't want to only elite hunt necessarily. Dawn would be amazing if it could be kind of flipped around so that it increases the cooldown, but it also increases how strong Vengeance is. So they have like some insane, burst cooldown that also makes you almost invincible, for example. So this kind of playstyle is really missing from Diablo 3. I believe this could be introduced with this way. Convention of Elements, again, is also an item that is used in so many builds, and a lot of people really don't like how it works. So why can't we have something where it has like a kind of like a smaller impact on like a burst phase, but it also gives you like a little bit of a bonus at least while you're not in the right element. Similarly, Squirt's Necklace is such an item that is included in almost every build, and a lot of people complain about, you know, getting one shot with it and these kind of things. So again, we could have a second version basically that stacks up to 5 only, but also doesn't have the penalty of taking more damage. And other various, you know, small little effects that we could do to just make certain items more viable, make them a bit more interesting, so that we, for example, for LOD builds don't have, you know, always the ice climbers, or that we don't always have convention of elements in every single build, or that, you know, some stuff like Shimizu becomes more playable. So again, this goes all into this whole category of character customization and, you know, allowing you to focus playing a build the way you wanted to play, or just to make certain builds more accessible when they are extremely hard to pull off. So there's a lot of these examples, and I guess especially these alternate item effects would be really, you know, really insane for the game, would give a lot of extra, you know, theory crafting potential, a lot of extra, you know, like just, yeah, trying out kind of like a journey for people. You know, they find a charm and suddenly they see like this changes, you know, one of their items that they're using in their build, and they want to try it and maybe they really like it. So this is kind of like the effect that I would like to produce here. Now we could go even further and also apply the same thing to sets, for example. So why not take Captain Crimson and you reverse the damage and the damage reduction effects so that your cooldown is damage reduction and your resource cost is damage bonus. So for example, when you're wearing a Yang's recurve on the build, you can go like ultra squish mode on a Demon Hunter for, you know, having even more damage. So there could be some stuff like this. There could also be some stuff like Natalia, for example, where it's actually suddenly, you know, really focused on Reign of Vengeance and not on the 6-piece bonus so much. So this could, you know, be a way to give a set, you know, multiple builds. So obviously, in some of those cases, these charms would be very build defining. And I guess that is also okay to have some of them being more impactful than others, but it's better to have like more options available, I believe. Here's also a funny outdated one, I guess, so we don't need that anymore. We can even make some funny stuff like, you know, some extra support Witch Doctor viability here. So we take Mundunugu's set, we disable the 6-piece bonus, and then we just make, you know, 3 different big bad voodoos so you can have up at the same time. So you summon like another one with another rune, and then you can have like the healing one, the mana one, the damage one, the everything. So that would be pretty cool to just give Witch Doctor some extra support viability, for example. And obviously there could be many other ways to change certain sets. And similar with legendary gems, I believe some of them are simply so useless that they don't even have to be in the game, like the Myrne gem, for example, Moratorium. So there is some stuff that can be made more viable here, either through an update to those gems or also, you know, with those charms. So you could change them a little bit. So one example here would be to take Myrne and give it some kind of like damage taken debuff that it can stack for every time you smite on the enemy. We could have something like Ice Blink is more effective for yourself, the same with the Toxin. So, you know, like you get like 30% bonus and a 30% damage reduction. So you can actually use this as a solo player and get something out of it. We could do some stuff like even just removing the slow aura of Benefit Trapped. So some builds would probably even like that, just to have an easier time pulling enemies together, for example. Or similarly, you also increase the size of the slow aura of the Benefit Trapped to make it easier for some builds to apply it. I think these kind of like, you know, small, you know, plus and minus effects and, you know, taking something that has to fit all builds and changing it up a little bit so that you actually have an option is really missing in Diablo 3. So we are forced to use the skills, we are forced to use the items as they are, and there's not really, you know, any kind of, you know, changes you can make usually. There's usually very few alternatives, and I believe that a system like this could very well fit into the game to make everything more exciting. And that's also it for my idea video here. So let me know what you think. If you have some other cool ideas of whatever we could add to this, let me know. I have the entire document copy-pasted in the description and in the pinned comment. Obviously, it's also quite late in the Diablo 3's development cycle now for anything like that. So I don't really see this happening at all, but potentially we see something similar in Diablo 4 at some point. Who knows? So that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Diablo content, and I'll see you guys next time.